Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Sights on Sinnoh. My name is William, and today I'm joined by Brady. Brady, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, I'm a 31-year-old male who plays Pokemon in his basement. It's pretty awesome.
That's the dream.
That is the dream, and I'm living it. Yeah, so I've played Pokemon since Red and Blue. Well, that's like when I started. I skipped a few gens, 4 or 5, and I played 3 a little bit, but I don't really remember much of it. And I came back for Sun and Moon. Or sorry, no, I came back in X and Y, but played a lot more in Sun and Moon, and then I've been playing really hardcore since Sword and Shield. As for the animes, I've only
Nice.
really watched like the first season. I don't know if Orange Island is considered a new season, but I did watch that, and then I've watched Journeys.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, cool. So you have some of the experience for the beginning of the show and some of the more recent
Yes,
stuff.
but nothing pretty much in the middle.
It's like you got the top and bottom of the sandwich. You're just missing that middle portion.
Yeah, we just need the meat. So hopefully, Diamond and Pearl will bring that.
You know what? I'm gonna make you this promise right now. Diamond and Pearl is the meat of the Pokemon anime. I will say that. I'll fight anyone on this. Don't at me. But I would definitely kind of portray it that way because of what goes down in this season specifically. But for listeners who are new and maybe skipped episode 1, my name is William again, and I started with Pokemon Sapphire. So Gen 3 was my first gen, and then Gen 4 started with Diamond, and then Platinum was my second generation of Pokemon. I first got into it because my parents found the VCRs of, I think, like the first maybe 12 to 16 episodes of the original Pokemon anime at a garage sale, and I watched them and I was like, oh my gosh, I love all this. And then when I was old enough, I got my Game Boy Advance SP with Pokemon Sapphire and been playing everything since then, basically. Um, I actually watched a lot of the anime in Spanish because in San Diego, you can actually, back in the day at least, get the signal from Mexico where they would show the Spanish dub of the show. So I watched a lot of Johto in Spanish, and then like later would I forget like how exactly watch a lot of the Hoenn anime. Um, and then I kind of started in the middle of the Sinnoh anime when I like found out how I could watch it online as a kid.
So, real quick, fun fact: since you brought up VCR,
Yeah.
um, so I was super obsessed with Pokemon as a child, which I am now. So it's not really that surprising. But I'd wake up in the mornings and want to record the episodes so I could rewatch them, and you could like if you had the proper VCR, you could record what was playing on your TV. Well, my mom had bought me like a bunch of blank VCR or VHS tapes to record with, and I guess I ran out of them, so I just grabbed any
Oh no.
VHS that I could to record, and it ended up being my sister's first Christmas that I recorded over. Yeah,
Oh
but hey, I got
no.
the Pikachu Dragonite fight on that one, so it was worth it.
Oh, totally, totally. Your sister, it's okay. You can give that to her. She'll sell that and it'll hold the price of ancient Mew
Ooh,
card,
nice.
basically. Uh, but yeah, I've definitely had those moments. Or like, I actually never did all the recording myself, but my parents would like record stuff for Power Rangers on VCR. But I have seen some at the beginning where I'm like, oh wait, this was something that happened before I was born. Well, I'll just enjoy the Power Rangers that recorded over
Nice.
it. But yeah, speaking of things happening, perfect transition. Okay. I'm going to read the blurb of this episode since today we're going to be going over episodes 2 and 3 of the Diamond and Pearl series. And we're going to start with episode 2, of course, which is titled 2 Degrees of Separation. Very keenly titled. And it goes something like this. Dawn and Piplup's Pokemon journey is off to a bumpy start. She needs to catch Pokemon so she can become a great Pokemon coordinator like her mom. But both her and Piplup are having trouble getting the hang of things. After a Baneri and a Burmy getaway, Pokemon After a Baneri and a Burmy getaway, Dawn spots a Pikachu, and she tries to catch it, before realizing it belongs to another trainer. When Team Rocket shows up to claim Pikachu as their own, Dawn realizes they're up to no good. A powerful attack from Piplup sends the Pokemon thieves packing. Alright, so I do know that you watched the first episode before this. Is that right,
Yes, I
Brady?
wanted to get some background context.
Got it. Did you watch these two before the first one, or did you
No, yeah,
start
I started
chronologically?
chronologically.
Okay. I was curious about this because the first episode is all about Dawn. Ash doesn't show up until the tail end of it. But then this episode kind of relies on on those last few minutes to give you an idea of what's going on. What I discussed in the last episode is that I'm wondering if that was just them not being confident if people were gonna actually carry on and keep watching the show because Ash doesn't appear for 90% of the first episode, and then when he does, it's a cliffhanger for
Oh
the
yeah.
second one. I kind of like where this episode starts off, where you see Dawn kind of taking on the some of the same challenges, I guess, that Ash had when he was starting off as a trainer in just trying to catch a Pokemon. Like it seems like it should be easy, but they both have a kind of a tough time doing so. Dawn, who actually has people listen to her mostly, compared to Ash, who had a very disobedient Pikachu. But we actually then run into said Pikachu. It looks like it's having a rough day. It's beat up. It's running through bushes, falling over. And then Dawn, of course, is like, "Oh my god, I can catch this Pikachu."
I think that's hilarious that like your first instinct is let's throw a Pokeball at this weak Pokemon. I mean, it makes sense. You're a trainer and you already failed. I believe it was 2 catches at that point. So why not try your hand at a third? And
Right.
but that poor Pikachu, man, he at the very end of the first episode, you see him like flying through the forest, and so you know he took a lot of damage on that fall,
Mm-hmm.
and he's very scraped up in the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, definitely. He is straight up assaulted by Team Rocket's Pokemon. Like he's trying to get away and just gets surrounded by a Viper, Cacnea, I think a Dustox too. This episode is one of the few where I really felt like Team Rocket was kind of a threat and almost menacing.
Yes, I was surprised by their Pokemon. They may have had those Pokemon from the previous season, but I
Yes,
was
they
very
did.
surprised by what they brought into battle and how effective it seemed to be.
Yeah, in general, like they seem really effective at their jobs. And then Meowth shows up to tell them like, "Oh no, Pikachu's our friend." And then Dawn pulls out the Pokédex, which I think is going to be a recurring theme throughout the show. Is that whenever we see some returning Pokemon from previous regions, it'll be Dawn who pulls out the Pokédex, and if it's new Pokemon, like the Starly that we see later on, Ash will pull out the Pokédex, which makes sense because Dawn probably hasn't seen them before, but then Ash has, but he hasn't seen some of the new Gen 4 Pokemon. But yeah, I really like this moment for Dawn when they're trying to really pull the wool over her eyes, or maybe the wooloo, some might say, that
Wait, we're in
they're.
Gen 4. We don't know what that is yet.
Oh, sorry, getting ahead of myself. The Mareep,
Yes, that's a good one.
the Mareep over her eyes. That Pikachu's their friend, and she's like looking at them. It cuts to Pikachu dodging an attack. She's still looking at them. Pikachu gets attacked again, and then she has people use Bubble Bean to clear a path for them and start to run away with Pikachu. Uh,
Yeah, one thing I noticed is she like jumped in front of the Pikachu with her Piplup, which was very Ash-like. So I
mm,
can see them having very similar personalities, at least in the way that they view Pokemon as like actual entities and not just tools.
yeah, exactly. They're very much trying to be friends. Like she connects with it as another living thing. Like she
Yes.
acknowledges that it's not just a tool or an object. Um, so that compassion comes through really nicely in here. Even though she doesn't have a lot of experience, she can tell something's wrong there when someone's being hurt. And then at the same time, you have you have Ash looking for Pikachu, and he's using his Aipom to climb the trees because it's the only Pokemon he has on him. And I didn't talk about this last episode, but he didn't really say why he left behind all his Pokemon. Originally, when he goes from Johto to Hoenn, is the first time that he leaves them all behind except for Pikachu. And you can see in some moments of the anime that Ash like goes is like facing a crisis, and he's like, "Go Noctowl!" Oh wait, I don't have Noctowl. Like he very much has that phantom party member syndrome where he's like, "Oh yeah,
Hmm.
I relied on these Pokemon a lot to do these things, and now they're not with me." He's starting completely fresh. But what do you think about Ash's choice in bringing just Pikachu and then Aipom kind of conveniently tagging along?
Well, I know that's like a theme for Ash in whatever new region he goes to. He barely brings any Pokemon, if any, besides Pikachu, and I think that's to help give the new generation more spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems very strange that like you go from, for instance, having a Charizard to having only a Pikachu, and then you're excited for like the new Route One Pokemon. I don't know. I would like if like early on, maybe he brought more Pokemon from the previous gens. Maybe like three.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a good number, and eventually like rotated them out, but still showed like some love
right.
to his old Pokemon in this newer season.
Exactly. And I think that's what they kind of did with Aipom, which is kind of nice because Aipom had only been in the show for a few episodes. So it seemed kind of like a sad moment when he was just going to leave this Pokemon that we had barely gotten to know. And then it decided to tag along with him. But originally, the first time Ash went to a new region was in Johto. He did bring along Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charizard. And then as the show went on, they found reasons to get rid of them. And they're like, no, we need to spotlight the new starters. Get these ones out of here. They're old news. They don't sell us
Okay,
games.
so that makes sense then.
Yeah, he's definitely done it before. But it is a good point of like why moving forward he doesn't do it at all. But there is a really neat gap and or a really neat bridge, I mean, between the last season and this one in terms of what Pokemon's bringing in and what the context is. But anyway, as he's using Aipom to try to help him look for Pikachu, Officer Jenny shows up and helps him out, brings him over to their lab. He actually has Aipom's Pokeball for him because Aipom left without Ash bringing the Pokeball with him, which is kind of cute.
Stowaway.
Yeah, exactly. He just was like, "I'm going with you," and no one noticed at Oak's lab apparently. But that's where he finds out that Dawn has actually run into Pikachu, and then she's looking for him, and then he's looking for her. You know, it's like the whole awkward thing before you had cell phones, or you're like telling people where you're gonna meet, and then you like keep going back and forth of where you're going. But Team Rocket is actually on their own little adventure as they reach a summer cottage, James' second family summer cottage. And they get there and they find that like no one's been here in years, and he just goes in and it kind of explores this old mansion. Because if you have context from the first season, it was established that James is coming from a very wealthy aristocratic family.
I remember vaguely with like a Growlithe, I believe.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he lived like in a mansion with them. But that's pretty much all I remember. But I did know that James came from money.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, and that's basically all you need to know. There is something in a little bit that I'll explain, but that's why he has this mansion just in Sinnoh that he goes into, and he finds his old playroom with a safe or like a little treasure chest that he had as a kid. And inside is a Pokeball that has a Carnivine, one of his childhood Pokemon apparently. Um,
It's very fitting.
right. But my question is, how long has that Pokemon been in there?
Right? So, honestly, that did cross my mind. So, the first thing I was like, Carnivine is very fitting considering the victory bell that he
Mm-hmm.
had. And James actually brought that up shortly after I thought about that. But then also, I was like, wait, If this has been like years, what happens to the Carnivine in there?
It
Is it like in stasis? Like
has to
does it
be.
experience time the same way that you would outside of the Pokeball for 10 plus years or more? I mean,
Yeah.
I think he was a child, so who knows how old James is? But gotta be at least 10 years, probably closer to 20. But
Right.
that poor Carnivine.
Yeah, I was like, what's happening? But Carnivine doesn't seem phased at all. Uh,
No, he was happy,
he
or they were happy.
and I'm curious because I think they do kind of hint that that's what Carnivine behaved like when James knew him as a kid. But if they didn't clarify that, I would have immediately thought that it was behaving like this because it was socially detached from the world for a decade. And was just trying to like connect itself with other people, James, since it knew him. But yeah, that's how we get their first party member from the Sinnoh region. They're making all these plans of setting up this place as the Team Rocket headquarters, but then they find out that Jezebel, I believe is her name, is coming over once they find out that they're using the Sinnoh region cabin or summer cottage actually. Do you remember this character?
I do not super remember. I know the picture that I think it was the butler was talking to them about contacting the family, and then I think maybe James showed the picture, but I don't really remember the character that well. I just know James was not interested.
Yeah, that's basically the takeaway. Jezebel is a character that James was supposed to have married. Like they were kind of arranged to be married. She looks pretty much exactly like Jesse, but he wanted none of that because he wanted to be his own person and not be tied down by marriage. Very independent young man, as at least how he views it. So that's why he has to run away because Jezebel won't is very aggressive and wouldn't let him get away if she actually caught him. Um, so Team Rocket's actually really supportive of James, and they're like, "Yeah, we get it. Let's get going because we know that if she comes, it's going to be all over for us. We're not going to be able to be a team." And they take off, which I think is kind of a nice moment for them. They were actually also playing the beta for Pokken on the TV,
I did see
which
that.
I thought was really funny.
Looked like a fun fighting game.
Yeah, it's like a Machamp and something else. I was like, oh, cool. People have video games in this universe that reference the Pokemon. But yeah, that's pretty. That kind of wraps up Team Rocket's arc in here, where they get Carnivine and then they're off on their way to look for Pikachu. But back to the main plot, or maybe back to the farm, some might say. He actually is, our Ash is still looking for Pikachu, and then the truck driver comes up to him in probably the weirdest moment of the show, and because in the passenger seat is Brock, and Brock comes out and is like, "Hey, Ash, like nice to see you here." And Ash is like, "What the heck is going on?" So apparently, what's her name? It's Cloudina is her name. Have you ever heard of this? Has anyone in your life been
No,
called this? Okay, perfect. Me neither.
I have no idea what that name is.
He tells Ash how he met her in Pewter City and that they've been on the road ever since uh, because Brock is still trying to get with a woman of his dreams apparently, and he thinks she's gonna be it. But suddenly she gets a call from her boyfriend, which apparently did not come up during this whole time. And she's like, "Hey, sorry, gotta take off. My boyfriend's calling me. Catch you later." And Brock's like, "Well, there goes that," and decides to join Ash on his journey. And this is when Brock finally notices that Pikachu's missing. So, what did you think about this little sequence?
I thought it was very awkward. Uh, I'm not a huge Brock fan in general. Okay,
Mhm.
I like Brock's characteristics outside of his obsession with women,
Mhm.
but anytime that comes up, it's very awkward for me. But seeing that he was just like traveling with this girl that he thought was going to be the one, and she has a boyfriend. Like you said exactly, like, how did that not come up in conversation? You were
Right.
driving around in a truck for how long?
How did this truck get here?
You had to, yes. Like, did you put it on a boat? But this was a long journey with those two together. He had to have been hitting on her most of the time, and she just didn't want to mention a boyfriend. I don't know. Maybe she was keeping it a secret. She liked the travel
Yeah,
companion.
she was just desperate for company, apparently. And now that she's back in the vicinity of her boyfriend, she's like, "All right, peace." Um,
Yeah, it's the whole different area codes thing.
oh, that's a thing. Oh, okay. Well, I learned something today. Um, but speaking of learning something, Ash does learn from checking out at the map that he's close to the Pokemon Center where Dawn was at, and he knows that Dawn has Pikachu. On the way there, Apom crashes through the trees into a wild Starly, which is one of the birds from Sinnoh, and they start fighting. But Ash ends up catching the Starly and adds it to his team as a bird that's going to be helpful in finding Pikachu. There, he takes off after a quick battle with Apom, um, and he's still upset that he doesn't find Pikachu. But at this time, they start taking off after Starly because it looks like Starly's caught something or has seen something. Um, and you see, I think, a hint of a new character, but you don't really get any information of them. And that's where the episode pretty much wraps up.
I thought it was a pretty good cliffhanger because they introduced a new character without really introducing them too
Mm-hmm.
much. But I am a big Elekid fan, and so when I saw the Elekid next to the new character, I was really excited.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's what I was trying to remember here. So you see Elekid with Paul, and that's what they think is Pikachu, I believe. Yeah, I thought Elekid was a cool choice because at the end of the Battle Frontier arc, Ash actually battles Gary, who uses an Electivire. So my thought was, is this like a foreshadowing of what Ash is going to be up against with his new rival in the Sinnoh region? Because we see him with this person with an Elekid, and we're gonna learn more about this guy in the very next episode. So just hang on for that. But yeah, I'm also a fan of Elekid, so it was kind of cool seeing that and understanding the setup is that this Pokemon is probably going to end up being an Electivire since we're in Sinnoh.
Yeah, that's what I took it as well. One day it will grow up to be Electivire,
Yeah.
unless it's like a Bulbasaur where they just keep it at the lowest stage possible for whatever reason. But that's fine.
Yeah, it's Pokemon. They might make some weird decisions with the team. Um, but yeah, overall, how would you rate this episode?
A 7 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
No, I think overall, I mean, it was a pretty good episode. I was wanting to see Dawn and Ash meet up at some point, or I think that
Mmm.
would have maybe been a good ending. Is if Ash and Pikachu like just saw each other and then it ended, but they didn't like get a communicator or anything. Um, but I also like the ending with the new character and the Elekid.
Yeah, I was gonna say that also kind of surprised me that they didn't meet. Like this is the second episode. You would think that they would have met by now because it's early on. We know these are going to be the new characters. This like Dawn's based off the protagonist from the games, and there is a callback here, which is kind of interesting. You see Dawn's bike get fried by Pikachu's thunderbolt.
That's true. I remember that.
Cool, cool.
That definitely was like, oh, that's Misty vibes right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Except she didn't say like you owe me a new bike or anything. She did mention that she wished she had her bike a few times, but she didn't hold that grudge.
She did, yeah. And before we go into that episode, because that's kind of where that comes up, I would also probably rate this around a 7. It's pretty close in quality to the first one, I would say. But yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. Now we're kind of paralleling the two. It still felt like it was giving Dawn a good amount of screen time, actually.
I agree. I feel like Dawn didn't do a whole lot in
Hmm.
this episode, but she was on the screen for quite a bit.
Yeah, I think the few moments that you did get of like rescuing Pikachu were powerful. Yeah, definitely did not have as much going on as this episode. This is probably the most eventful of the three, I would say.
The third episode?
Yes, the third episode, which is called
Yes.
When Pokemon Worlds Collide. And we're just going to jump into this because it takes off literally just as the other one was ending. And it starts off with Elekid, as Brady mentioned before. And Elekid is just throwing electricity willy nilly. It's like his trainer doesn't care. He just wants to get these Starly to like start flying around and come out of their roosts and their nests, so he can try to catch some strong ones. And he does. He catches three of them after accidentally trying to catch Ash's Pikachu. Pokeball doesn't work. It bounces off them because someone else already owns this Pokemon. And this is the first interaction we get between Paul and Ash. And what do you think about this?
My very initial reaction was like, oh my gosh, Paul is one of us. He's an IV checker. Um, so, he's catching all these Pidgey and he's like, oh, this one has trash IVs. I'm just going to release it. They don't really talk about IVs, though. They talk about moves. So
Yes.
the way that he was looking about it is the one that he decided to keep had aerial
Mhm.
ace, whereas the other ones only had, I believe, tackle and sand attack.
Yes, those Starly had no
And so
moves.
he wanted the stronger ones. But to me, I was like, this is totally an IV
Mhm.
situation. Or sorry, yeah, that's IVs. So I was like, I could relate very much with that. And then it shifted shortly after that. I was like, maybe I don't relate with this character that much.
Right, like Ash is bothered by this. He's like, that's a weird way to think about Pokemon. Like he very much is
Yeah.
not on board and is trying to not be rude about it, but he can tell that he's very much against this mentality that Paul has. And then after like a quick argument, he leaves. But I what I thought was really cool is that they use the Pokédex as the tool to tell what the moves are and like presumably natures and stuff like that. And you haven't really seen that before. This season really kind of digs into the Pokédex being kind of like the DS of these trainers, where you can like look at the menu for these Pokemon, which I thought was really cool. And Paul very edgily has a black version of the Pokédex.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's literally the exact same one that Dawn and Ash have, but it's black. Um, and we'll get more into Paul later. But at this point, like, what? Well, we'll talk more about Paul because he comes up later. Moving back to the plot, Ash and Brock and Ash also move on from Paul because they see another Volt tackle in the distance. Actually, like Ash explicitly says, "I that's an effect of a Volt tackle that he sees," and they go in that direction. And that's where they find Dawn, Piplup, and Pikachu. They're they're being harassed by Team Rocket and like this weird egg robot that has Sonic vibes to me. Um,
Yes. It was to me. It was like a Doctor
mhm.
Eggman and a Deoxys cross. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, with like all the arms and stuff. I can see that.
Yeah, it was very Deoxys like to me.
Eh,
Not colors, but the visuals.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's a very weird event. I kind of don't like that it comes to them using this big machine. Um, when just in the last episode they were being really effective with their own Pokemon. And that the whole sequence to me is probably the most awkward part of this episode, where like they don't seem to be able to do any damage to the machine. It's like beating up Ash at one point, and then Ash just gives up using his Apom and Starly, and it's like, all right, I'm just gonna climb this and go rescue Pikachu, who's been captured.
He uses like ninja moves to get up it.
Yeah, he's just like, all right, I'm gonna parkour my way to the top or something. And this is also where he sees the full motto for Team Rocket in the Sinnoh region because they have an updated motto actually. Um, I kind of like it honestly. It's kind of like a like the grown up version of the original. It's a little more sophisticated.
Maybe I'm just a boomer, but I love the original, and anything other than that, I'm like, this is wrong. You're not saying it right.
It's
Even with the Wobbuffet in it, like I know
oh
Wobbuffet's
really?
been around for a while at this point. Even like the Wobbuffet at the very end, I'm just like, oh, this isn't right. This isn't Team Rocket.
That's not part of the original.
Yeah, so super boomer on that.
Yeah, I can totally see that. It's definitely the most iconic of the mottos, and they go back to that. Um, this one, they're just like, oh, we're trying something new, and it works after you've maybe watched a little more of the show and see like what Jessie does specifically in this region. As kind of her side quest thing. But for now, it is kind of weird setup having this big machine and Ash Ash just climbing it like a ninja to rescue Pikachu. Because the way that the machine gets defeated is because they're trying to get Ash off the machine using other hands, but they end up puncturing their own machine with those arms, and it just starts blowing up. To me, this is like the awkward part of that episode. I don't know why they did it this way. It felt like it could have been a really organic team up between Dawn and Ash just in a regular battle. Um, because you see that they're pretty effective with their Pokemon, so I don't know why they went this route for this sequence.
Yeah, I kind of go back and forth with Team Rocket in general. So there are some episodes where I think they're super great, and there's a lot of episodes
Mm-hmm.
where I wish that they were just regular Rocket grunts,
Mm.
and it wasn't just Jesse and James every single time. Especially when they are really obnoxious or just bad, and not like evil bad, but just bad bad.
Right.
Like in this episode is how I felt, and I was like, I just wish they were like grunts or some other no named character that was harassing Ash. Because of course you always need to have some sort of drama in episodes, but
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it's always Team Rocket, like those same three, it just to me can sometimes get old if it's not written well.
Right. Like in the last episode, we had a really well written sequence of them finding James's house. You see like James' emotional attachment and conflict with making sure that the team is like healthy and everything. But then the threat of his family like taking everything away from him and stuff like that. Um,
He could have used his Carnivine in this
he
battle.
could have used his Carnivine. That's very true. We just got this Pokemon and we're not even going to showcase it in a battle. That seems kind of odd to me. But what does end up happening instead is Ash gets reunited with his Pikachu. Piplup, however, is very beaten up, and Brock takes care of it as a Pokemon breeder. He's well equipped for taking care of Pokemon. And as the show goes on, you'll see that Brock's status as a Pokemon breeder comes up more and more, which I think is really cool. Since in the past, he's kind of been a breeder. Like the last time it really came up, I would say, is with Vulpix, when he was kind of taking care of that Vulpix for the friend that he met, and then finally gave it back to her. And here it's also kind of brought up like, oh, because he's a breeder, he can do these things.
Yeah, so I remember the Vulpix aspect of Brock being a breeder. I don't remember how exactly all that tied in,
Mm-hmm.
but I do remember that was like a selling point to why he had Vulpix. Um, but it's very strange, like comparing it to the video games.
Yeah.
A breeder, you're just getting eggs and hatching eggs and running around in circles, whereas in the show, it seems like he has a lot of potions and he knows how to make the right Pokemon food for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like he knows how to be a Pokemon daycare person and not just a breeder.
Yeah, he's like someone who nurtures them.
Yes.
He has like kind of a medic vibe going to him for sure. Um, but yeah, I thought this kind of cool that this kind of alludes to him having more of a focus this season than he's had in previous ones.
Well, and it also made me think about how Dawn is very contest
Mm-hmm.
focused, and at this point, I don't really know what that means. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
I have vague ideas of what the contests are. When they mentioned it in the previous episodes, I thought about an episode. It may have even been the Vulpix one, but I can't remember, of like season one where they dress up all their Pokemon, and I want to say they dress up Victory Bell to be something stupid too, and they were just doing a like beauty pageant.
Mm.
So that's kind of like what I'm thinking for these contests is like beauty pageants, but maybe there's more to it than that. Uh, but it's definitely like an identity uh, as a person who goes to contests. I think they said they were like a conductor, contest conductor. I can't remember.
Yeah,
But then it also brought up the whole breeding thing. So I thought maybe those side jobs are going to have bigger aspects than just catch Pokemon, battle gyms, game over.
got it. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. In the games, Pokemon coordinator is like you're really just a trainer who does something on the side, but here the way that's set up is kind of following the idea that was established in the Hoenn region with Battle Frontier being the last season before this, where similar to Pokemon trainers who have to go and get 8 badges, Pokemon coordinators have to get 5 ribbons by winning these Pokemon contests. And then going on to compete in a grand festival. So that's kind of the parallel there. But the way that they train their Pokemon and how they present themselves is very different, which you'll see in a few episodes. Um, but yeah, I'm very happy to hear that it's kind of put some seeds in your mind of what is going to happen with these three in terms of their specialties. But after this, Ash gets back to the lab where he's received an outfit and backpack from his mom. He's gonna update his look to conveniently be a little more like the avatar for the Diamond and Pearl games, specifically with his backpack. And that's going to be what Ash wears from now on. And what's funny is that in the last episode of Battle Frontier, he was actually overnight, he just took off to Sinnoh, but you saw in the shot that his mom was working on the outfit. So apparently she didn't finish it in time, and he like took off before she could, and now she was just sending it over to him. But now you see Ash in his second ever real new outfit, because the first time was in Hoenn, and before that in Johto and Kanto, he's just wearing the same thing. So, what do you think about the new look for Ash?
Yeah, I like just in general having wardrobe changes.
Mm,
I think it helps. Aside from the animation styles, it just helps signify like what season is what. So I think that's pretty important. And I always like a good wardrobe change in general, as long as it looks good, which I think it looks good. The only thing I did notice is everyone has really baggy pants.
that's true.
It's very loose fitting.
Yeah, the style apparently is very much not fitting as the trend.
Yes.
Um,
But I like the color coordination on it. I think it looks good.
Yeah, I like the yellow on the chest matching Pikachu because he always has Pikachu on his shoulder. It's not necessarily super different from what he's had before, but it's kind of just like a jacket. And before he kind of had like a hoodie esque thing going on with the Hawaiian one, which seems like it would get hot a lot of the time. There's also like a short sleeve hoodie, which is kind of weird. Yeah, this thing is going to be wearing for pretty much the whole season and definitely goes towards that identity of him being in the Sinnoh region. Like, oh, this is his look now. So anytime you see it, you know what season it's from. And then they go back to the lab, or they're at the lab, and that's where Ash explains to Dawn because she's like, hey, why didn't you put Pikachu back in your Pokeball? And he's like, oh, no, Pikachu likes being outside more. So again, we're bringing back some themes from the beginning, clarifying them for new characters and also new watchers of the show. Because that's what I feel like Dawn ends up being from this point forward, at least for a few more episodes. she's very much the POV person for new watchers of the show.
That's an interesting take. I'll have to try to look at these next episodes with that point of view.
Yeah, I would be curious to see if you think the same thing there, because to me, like, she has a distinct personality, at least in these first two episodes, and maybe a little bit of this one as well. But moving forward, she kind of stalemates for a little bit. But something that's not a stalemate is what happens when they get outside the lab. And the first thing they see that surprises all of them is Paul just smug there, standing against a tree, just leaning back on it. Apparently just waiting there for them to come out. I don't know how he knew they were going to come out soon. He might have just been there for hours, which is what I would like to imagine.
Yeah, just kind of stalk them back to the lab and wait out there for like 3 or 4 hours.
Apparently, yeah. He's like, they'll end up back here. This is the thing. Paul is agitating me at this point already. Like, we're barely getting to know him. And the only thing he says to Professor Rowan is to respectfully use his backyard for a trainer battle that he wants to have with Ash.
That is very interesting because when they met in the forest, he said that he wanted to do a 3-on-3 battle, but Ash only had two Pokemon, the Apom and the Starly, so they couldn't do that battle. And then he, I guess, found out that that Ash got the Pikachu back, so he stalks him back to the lab and says, "Okay, now we both have three Pokemon. Let's battle." But that seems like a lot of time out of your day just to battle some random guy that you met. But maybe he wants to prove that his way of viewing Pokemon is better and stronger, and Ash's view is maybe childlike.
Yeah, I'm also struggling with this because he seems kind of like he doesn't care, but he's still obsessed. Like, in the beginning, he kind of just walks away from Ash and Brock when they're in the forest. But the thing that kind of stops him is when he hears Ash say that Pikachu knows a Volt Tackle. And then later on, you see that he walks up to the wreckage um, of Team Rocket's robot, and he just kind of stares at it. He didn't say anything. So I'm wondering if that's the change that we're supposed to get, is that he's interested in battling strong trainers. He seems to know that Volt Tackle is a rare move for Pikachu to know. Because are you familiar with how Volt Tackle is learned in the games?
No, I'm not.
Okay, perfect. So in the games, you have the light orb, and Pikachu are holding it when they're breeding. The Pikachu that's born will have the move Volt Tackle, and that's the only way you can get it unless you breed it on from there. But the thing that makes it special is that it's Pikachu's signature move and probably its most powerful move, with 120 damage, but also does recoil to the user. So it's not a lot of Pikachu that can have this move because you would technically have to breathe it. In Ash's case, they kind of acknowledge that it's not a move that it should have, but the way to get around it is by Pikachu learning it on an egg farm in Kanto. So to me,
Oh,
it's like, oh, maybe he has to do something with the environment, and that's why Pikachu learns it. Because otherwise, like, it technically shouldn't happen. But while he's there and fighting Team Rocket, his quick attack instead turns into Volt Tackle, and Pikachu learns the new move, Volt Tackle.
yeah, that was a sneak peek of what we would get in Sword and Shield, being able to transfer egg moves over without having to make a baby Pokemon.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, maybe like that's just where kind of the idea came from. I highly doubt it, but to me, that's my headcanon for where the inspiration came from.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a rare move, but if Pikachu's holding a light ball, the baby can have that. A light orb, sorry, is what I meant. And it can also still hold the light orb to give itself a boost in battle. But yeah, this is, I think, what sparks the curiosity for Paul.
Yeah, that puts more context into it, knowing that it's a rare move, because he did perk up when he said Volt Tackle.
And I think it's also a hint of Paul being more experienced than we might think he is. But more on that later. Because now is when we actually see the battle between Ash and Paul. And Paul, it just talks, and the more he talks, the more I start to despise the character. But in a good way, where it's like, not he's annoying, it's like, I, like, Oh, like it just irks me. Lots of the things that he starts saying.
Yes, and that's where I was saying earlier, when he first started talking, I was like, oh my gosh, he's one of us like hardcore players
Hmm.
who's searching for perfect IVs, and then he just keeps talking, and then it's like, oh, maybe we're not the same
Hmm.
because you're a jerk.
Yes, he is a jerk, and this very much cements it. In the first battle, he goes Starly versus Starly, since Ash caught his. But his Starly knows Aerial Ace, and Aerial Ace is a move that you can't dodge. It has 100% accuracy every time, which is why when Ash tries to tell Starly to dodge, it doesn't work. Yeah, I know there's other moments in the anime where they do get around it, but in this case, they're going with that basic mechanic seemingly. And Paul berates him for not releasing the Starly and just catching a stronger one like he did because it saves him time. He's already got the stronger one. And so from there, we go to the second round, which is Ash's Apom versus Paul's Chimchar. We're stopping here. What was your prediction for who was going to win?
I thought that Ash should win and was going
Mm.
to because Pikachu's like level 9,000 at by this point, but they did say that you have to win two of the three battles of the one-on-ones. So like when Ash's Starly lost, they didn't bring Apom in to fight the Starly. Like that first battle was considered over, and then they started a second battle,
Hmm.
which is I'm not sure if that's like how they typically do it in the animes, or if that's just this type of battle.
It's not all battles. That's a good question. Sometimes you'll see later on for the more intense ones, it will have like them switching out, and it won't be a round style. But this one is a little more unique.
Yeah, and so once I saw the Apom and the Chimchar fight, I was like, ooh, Ash needs to win this one or it's instantly over.
Hmm.
So I was a little unsure at this point.
Yeah, because Paul seems pretty menacing throughout the whole thing. So I'm like, oh man, is Ash gonna lose? But bringing in the Apom, which he has a little more experience battling with compared to the Starly, I I was excited to see that there was some monkey on monkey action with the Chimchar.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was on purpose or not. But throughout the whole match, Dawn's kind of just saying things, and Rowan's kind of clarifying what's happening, and saying like, "Oh, Paul's just testing Ash's strength here. And this is what Paul wanted." Like he's kind of reading what Paul's trying to get from this match, which I think is kind of cool. Like at one point,
Yeah, he talked about the focus punch.
mhm,
Um, they dodged the first focus punch, or they attacked through the first focus punch, and so it didn't go off. And the professor was like talking about that.
right? Are you familiar with how Focus Punch works in the games?
Yes, but in case no one listening does, you can explain more.
Yeah. So Focus Punch is a move that requires the user to charge and not get hit, because if they are hit during that turn when they're charging, the focus will be lost and they won't get to fire off the move. That's kind of a way to balance it out because it's a really powerful fighting type move. And in this case, what Ash does is have Apom use his regular hands. That's where it's helpful to have three hands technically to dodge Chimchar's attack so he can hit it with a focus punch and knock out Chimchar, which wins him the round.
Ash is always very good with coming up with these wacky strategies that aren't straightforward. Like,
Mm-hmm.
instead of using this attack on this Pokemon, it's I'm going to use this attack on the ground
Mm-hmm.
and you know like just get mobility or catch my opponent off guard. He's very good at that, and so I think he's a creative battler. So that allowed him to create the opening he needed for the focus punch.
Yeah, totally. I was also gonna say like he's very much creative in what he does. But here in this case, in the next battle, which is Pikachu versus Elekid, he does something that I think the anime has done a few times, where they say if an electric type gets hit by an electric type move, it can absorb it and use it to its advantage to kind of supercharge it.
I was gonna ask, does Elekid have lightning rod?
I don't think it does. I know Electivire has motor drive, an ability that can let you absorb electric type attacks and make them boost your speed, but Elekid only knows static.
Okay, so but maybe that's what they were going off of was the motor drive ability, because when Ash's Pikachu took the Thunder, he didn't get charged up, but the Elekid did get charged up.
That's right. The thing is, Pikachu can also have Lightning Rod, maybe in later generations at
Mm-hmm.
least. And the motor drive ability does come up later, but I think this interpretation of what happens is more that he's an electric type Pokemon, so he can take an electric attack and absorb it. And the reason Pikachu couldn't is because it wasn't ready to do so. And also, Elekid is now supercharged using Pikachu's energy to fire it back at him. Um, that's kind of the safest assumption I can make there. But and this leads to Ash going full out and having Pikachu use Volt Tackle on Elekid, which doesn't quite work because we see Protect.
Yeah, I was not expecting that move in the anime. I don't know if they've done it in previous seasons, but that really caught me off guard. But someone who likes to dabble in VGC, not great at it, but like to dabble in it, is very cool to see Protect in the anime.
I thought this was also really curious because in the battle between Ash and Gary with Gary's Electivire, Ash also loses when Electivire uses Protect to knock Pikachu off guard. So I'm like, are they really just gonna go with this? Like, is this gonna be the thing that defeats Pikachu and Ash? Which I thought was kind of a weird choice, but it really works in this case where you can tell that there's strategy and it's not just full out who's more powerful. It's more about who's smarter in how they attack and use their energy. Because this is a little different from the games, but in the games normally if you use Volt Tackle or like a recoil move, except for something like high jump kick, the user doesn't take damage for that turn.
If they Protect,
Right.
correct.
But in this case,
Yeah.
Rowan explains to Don that no, that they Pikachu still takes the Volt Tackle damage. But anyway, this leads to a head-on-head with Pikachu using Iron Tail and Elekid countering with Brick Break, and it looks like they're even. But then Paul says something that catches Ash off guard, which is that, hey, yeah, we're even, but Elekid has two hands.
Is this where he comes in with a Thunder Punch?
Yes, you're right. Yeah, that's where he uses Thunder Punch.
I think that's it's very different than the video games.
Mm-hmm.
Just turn-based battles versus anime battles, very different. But I think it's a unique take um, on battling, and I think it's a good way to go about it because I mean, technically, yeah, he does have two hands.
Mm-hmm.
So if one hand's doing a brick break and it gets countered, why not go for another attack with the other hand? They do
Exactly.
that in boxing.
It's like it's logical in lots of ways,
Yes.
and it almost works out for Paul, but Pikachu ends up using the momentum of his Iron Tail to keep the Thunder Punch from landing and then hitting the Elekid one more time with its Iron Tail, which knocks both of them out. And I thought this was an interesting development because originally when Pikachu was learning Iron Tail to go against Roxanne back in the Rock type gym from Emerald and the Hoenn region, Pikachu can't use Iron Tail two times consecutively is kind of the reason for them explaining why Pikachu's Iron Tail keeps failing. In this case, he doesn't end the Iron Tail, like his tail doesn't stop glowing. It just keeps going, so Pikachu just maintains the energy. And like since then they've kind of forgotten about the rule, but I'm wondering if that was the precedent that they were trying to keep up with.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat idea of why of
Can't just spam the
yeah, why you
move.
can't spam the move, and also maybe kind of explains that the physics or the energy component that goes into anime battles, where you can't just keep doing this because they're living beings that are gonna get exhausted.
Yeah.
But anyway, the battle does end in a tie as both sides are knocked out, So it ends up being a draw. I really like this as an idea. I think it could be executed a little better in how believable the damage is that they take from both sides. But it's overall a strong start for Ash and Paul's rivalry, I would say. It ends with Paul releasing the Starly he just battled with, almost just to piss off
Yes,
Ash, is what my thought is.
100%. It was very snarky.
Yeah, it's just like the arrogance of this guy really gets to me.
But I did think there was something interesting at the very end of the battle. Brock claimed it was a tie.
Mm-hmm.
Ash said they lost because Pikachu went down first, like a second before, and
Right.
then his name's Paul,
Yep.
right? Paul said it was like it was ruled as a tie, and so we tied.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, that's an interesting uh, character development for me.
Mm.
He didn't want to just take the win,
Yeah, he's very
you know.
honor bound, I would say. Even though he's a jerk and he doesn't view people who don't take things seriously like him as competent individuals, at least Ash, he still is very much honor bound in like respecting his elders, like thanking Professor Rowan for using the field,
Mm-hmm.
respecting the decision that was called by the referee for his match, which is Brock. And you'll see this going through where he's very much like, I'll treat you with respect if I think you deserve it, but otherwise, you got nothing from me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If I were Paul in that situation, I would have been like, "This is your longtime travel companion
Hmm.
calling the match, and you said it was a tie, but your Pokemon fainted first." I don't know. I may have been more inclined to be like, "Nah, nah, I won. Your friend was just calling it for you."
Oh, that's funny. Well, that's the thing. Ash actually says like, "No, my Pikachu went down first. I think it should be a loss."
Mm.
Like he isn't the one who refutes it. It's actually Ash, which is the interesting part.
I think it shows both their
Hmm.
character.
Definitely, and I wonder if this ties back to the honor thing, where it's like Paul's Pokemon still fainted, so to him, like at the end result is his Pokemon couldn't battle, like he couldn't keep going. So maybe he's kind of like acknowledging that his strength and weakness didn't let him completely win the match.
Yes,
Um,
which to me is crazy that he went and released the Starly, which was the only Pokemon of his that actually won its match.
that's so true. The reason he gives is that Starly is the average strength and he can like just go catch another one that has just as strong.
Yeah,
That's
which I mean, it's kind of true. It's just a freaking Starly. Which I don't know. I mean, see, this is where I'm like, I kind of identify with Paul. Maybe not like right after a battle,
Mhm.
but just in general, just be like, maybe your IVs aren't that great. I can catch another one.
That's yeah.
There's tons in the forest.
There's plenty of feathers in the sky. Yeah, that's very interesting. I didn't even think about it that way, but I guess it kind of just shows how deliberate Paul can be with what he does.
Yeah, whereas Ash gets that emotional attachment. If you want to battle with a Pokemon, they're instantly best friends.
Yeah, he's like, you can train Pokemon to be strong. You don't have to go hunt them like they're video game party members. Gosh.
Yeah,
But yeah,
this is the real world, not a video game.
exactly. That's pretty much it for the episode. It kind of sets up this rivalry moving forward. We're definitely going to see Paul. But overall, what are your predictions for Paul?
I think Paul's gonna be a good rival overall. I like that he's a person who is trying to catch strong Pokemon
Mm.
and build like a strong team, not just like, oh, I like this Pokemon, I'm gonna put them on my team. I think I think to me that shows more of a battler
Mm.
than just a Pokemon trainer,
Mm.
and I think that that will prove to be a difficult challenge for Ash going forward. What I did think about is you don't have to spoil it for me because I'm sure you know. But what I did think about was since he has the Chimchar and Don has the Piplup, I'm assuming Ash is eventually going to get a Turtwig unless there's another character introduced that has Turtwig. But
Mm. I mean, that's a good prediction. I would stick around for 2 more episodes and find out the answer to
Oh yeah,
that. But
perfect.
yeah, that's actually going to be answered in our next recording for episode 3 of Sights on Sinnoh. But I'm glad to hear that is on your mind right now, because that's always on my mind is like, all right, when's Ash going to get this Pokemon? When's Ash going to get that Pokemon? Are there any other
Exactly.
predictions that you have for Pokemon that will join Ash's party?
Not currently,
Okay,
no.
that's totally
There's
fair.
nothing that's really sticking out. But maybe as we like go through a few more episodes and see a few more of the Sinnoh Pokemon, I'll be like, oh, Ash really needs to get this one on his team. And hopefully it's not like you're introduced to the Pokemon and then he catches it right away.
Hmm.
So we get to like think about it.
That's a cool observation you have there, because Dawn actually does run into a Pokemon in episode 2 that she encounters for the first time but doesn't catch, but she will later on. That's
Okay, yeah.
definitely possible. At least what we will see from this example. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about based off of the opening credits. I also did notice, real quick on that, I believe it was in a moon ball
Oh.
in the credits.
Oh.
So I'm excited to see like the different Pokeballs if they're actually
Mm.
being used this season or if they're just for
Mm.
show.
Oh, Brady. Oh my God. I love that you saw that. And I love that you haven't played the games, because you're going to learn about those balls.
Oh, good.
But that's a really interesting assumption on your part that they're using a moon ball. But I'm so excited to get to that episode with you. I'm also going to check in with you later on about any party predictions as we keep going through the season. But yeah, you're oh yeah, it's gonna be a good time when we get to Pokemon contest and you learn what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
But yeah, just to wrap up this episode, what would you rate episode 3, When Worlds Collide?
I give it a good like 8.5 out of 10. If I gave the last one a 7, this one needs to be quite a bit above it, but still not perfect. I felt like the beginning maybe was a little bit slow,
Mm-hmm.
but everything that happened after they got to the lab was really good in my opinion.
Definitely, yeah. I would settle on an 8. Again, like you said, the beginning with Team Rocket just felt really awkward and kind of just something that they wanted to wrap up really quickly and move on to the main meat of this, which was, of course, the Paul portion of the episode. I'm really happy with this episode, honestly. I'm glad that the 8 that I give it is for this one out of the first 3, because it really wraps up this kind of mini arc, I guess is what you would call it, where Pikachu gets separated from Ash and they have to reunite, and that happens over the course of these 3 episodes. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode of Sights on Sinnoh. Brady, is there somewhere that people can follow you or check you out if you are on the internet?
Oh man, yeah, I guess Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Cymbacoil, Cymbacoil. I also stream about once a week, but I mean that's just whatever. I just do that for fun. Hang out with some friends in the Pokemon community. Same thing at Cymbacoil on Twitch.
Not Facebook
Other than
gaming?
that, no, no, that's that's for the Spanish speaking
Oh,
community, and I don't know much Spanish.
thank you so much, Brady, for coming by and talking about episodes 2 and 3 of the Diamond and Pearl series here on Sights on Sinnoh. There's a lot of ons going on there. Yeah, it's been great talking with you, and I'm glad to hear your predictions and observations of everything so far.
Thanks for having me on, and thanks for inviting me to this project. It's gonna be fun.
Totally,
It,
totally.
it already has been fun. I'm excited to watch the whole season and learn more about Sinnoh.
Yeah, definitely. I was a little hesitant at first of how explosive these first 3 episodes were going to be, because I kind of forgot about it myself. This one really restored my confidence in it, so I'm glad to see what happens moving forward. But again, thanks for listening to episode 2 of Sights on Sinnoh. I've been William,
And I'm Brady.
and we'll catch you next time.